I am Pat La Frieda, CEO of Pat La Frieda Meat Purveyors. We have been serving restaurants and hotels, and for 3 generations, our family has chosen Victorinox as our knife of choice. This is an American leg of lamb. There are 2 great ways to prepare this. This is going to be stewed. So with the lamb leg, if you're going to make stew, it's best to separate the different muscle groups and then cut the stew from there. First thing we're going to do is take our Victorinox boning knife and remove the flank steak. It's much easier to grab that silver skin underneath it and to ride it right out, removing it so that we just have the meat. We're going to take something that would have been very tough with it on and turn it into one of our cubes. The filet mignon runs right into the leg, which many don't realize. So we want to be very careful in removing that. And we're just really riding that pelvis bone all the way down, exposing what is the fillet. The flexibility of this knife is key here. It's not a straight bone. It has many twists and turns, and your knife has the twist and turn with it. If it doesn't, you'd cut through some really great pieces. While it's still in its entirety, it's a great way to use the weight of the lamb and to take away all of this additional sinew, because we don't need it when we're going to use these as kebabs. What we'd like to do is remove the fillet, which is here. So that is a fillet of lamb, which is extremely tender. And now what we want to do is we want to find that femur bone. So we have the knuckle sticking out, and just get past the knuckle and really just ride down that femur bone until we get to the shin bone. The least amount of meat that you could take off, the better. Here we have the separate cuts. And the reason that we want to separate them is because in between each one is connective tissue. And we want to get rid of that. Going along with our stew, that's exactly what we want to do, is make equal size cubes. And that's it for the inside round. And that inside round is about the size of a fist. It's the largest uninterrupted cut inside the leg. So here's that shank part that we cut around. I'm just going to pull that and put that to the side. There's also this heel here. So with our boning knife, we're going to come in and just remove it. We could start here with the eye round. So this is the eye round of lamb. There's a little fat cap on top we will remove. A little bit of fat's good to leave on. This is the now peeled knuckle, which is part of the sirloin. With our scimitar knife and the strength of the back of it, it's really simple to cut through. Now, this is the lamb bottom round, and this is where a lot of chefs get confused. So I can imagine at home how confusing it can be, but it's quite simple. This is known as the gooseneck if the eye round which we removed was still on it. So this is the flat round. And this silver skin here needs to be removed. Now the back is the exterior of the lamb leg. So what we'll do is we'll start a little bit of pulling that fat back. Switch over to the scimitar knife, which is longer since we we wouldn't be able to see otherwise, and remove all that usable meat. As we can see, this is not even. There's a triangular piece here. There's actually one nerve that separates that. So we'll cut across that and then continue making our stew. This is the lamb hip. It's a very, very tender cut. I'm going to cut that into stew as well. And attached to the hip is one last part. We've all heard of beef triangle. The lamb actually has the same cut, and it's just a matter of getting it out of the fat. You can see the bend on the knife. So I'm actually letting the flexibility help me. So having that sensibility and flexibility is what really helps, because I'm able to remove that in one piece. And then our lamb triangle, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut that into equal parts stew. And now we have two different types of stew. Obviously there isn't a lot of this, but this would be braised, and all this is ready for the back barbecue for shish kebab. This is our second leg of lamb. So with the first one we made stew. With this one we're going to make a roast. We're going to take our Victorinox boning knife and we're going to find that pelvis and follow it across. Depending on what I'm cutting, I'm either using my forefinger or I am using my fist when it comes to the harder parts. So finding that knuckle, that femur knuckle there, is really half the battle, because what we want to do is we want to cut through that nerve and that connective tissue. And then as soon as I'm past that, if you could see the knife angle, it's almost parallel to the table. It's no longer pointing down. If you could see how flexible that Victorinox knife is, it's the only way that you'd be able to do that. And there is the femur bone knuckle. And what I'm trying to do is just get to where I can feel with the tip of the knife. There's so much sensitivity with a Victorinox knife that I can slide that past where I could actually see, and I could feel where that bone is. To tie this into a roast, this is called tunneling. We don't want to poke any of the exterior because we're going to tie this, and this is what's going to actually roast. So when it comes to the shank side, we just cut right along the shank, right around where the knee is, and that is where the femur bone attaches. A lot of this is knowing the anatomy and using a knife that's able to be flexible to get through all of those grooves. Before I tie this, what I want to do is I want to take out any excess fat that's in abundance. So especially the kidney fat here, which is right above the fillet. Right here is the flank steak. The flank steak is covered by a real thick piece of sinew, and you wouldn't want to roast a lamb leg and leave that on. Now we're ready to flip over. You'll notice there's about 1 inch to 1.25 inches of fat that we really need to trim through. And you're going to find that the same thing on this side, where we want to get that fat out. Your knife becomes another sense. You can sense where fat is just by the amount of tension that it's giving me, and I could feel as to when I'm getting to protein, and that's important. The Achilles heel. You don't want to make a lamb leg roast with the Achilles heel still in. And then we're going to take the shank and tuck it right into this hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie our first string. As we compact this, we'll want to get our first butcher's knot that goes along the leg long ways. Once that's accomplished, I know I can come back in here and finish my knots, and I won't squeeze the leg out so that it's irregular. That is our second option, and that's a leg of lamb boned and tied. With 2 Victorinox knives, I was able to take 2 different legs of lamb and make 2 different preps. First, we have our lamb stew, which is great for grilling on kebabs in the summer. We have our lamb bones for stock. We have a little bit of the lamb shank for braising. And with this leg of lamb, I was able to use my tunneling method and completely debone this without piercing any of the outside, using the boning knife, tying this, and getting this ready for a roast.